Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of Forum IT. Today we have with us one of the most trusted voices in modern marketing, Mark Schaefer, author, speaker, marketing expert, and one of the few people who can explain complex marketing shifts with both data and deep humanity. Mark has just published a new book, How AI Changes Your Customers, the marketing guide to humanity's next chapter. It's not a book about algorithms. It's a book about people, about how artificial intelligence is quietly reshaping the way we think, feel, decide, and even connect. And why, in this new reality, understanding our customer is not just a marketing skill. It's a survival skill. I am Csaba, the host of this episode, and together with Mark, we will talk about how AI is changing the very fabric of customer behavior, from deep thinking to empathy, from trust to meaning, and what it takes for brands and creators to stay visible while being human when everything around us becomes automated. So, let's begin our journey. Hi, Mark, and thank you for joining this episode of Forum IT.
I'm delighted to be here with you today. I actually have so many friends in your country. I hope they're watching.
Absolutely. I'm sure about that. And I still can recall the moment when I saw you first on the stage of GPEC in Romania, and I was listening to your presentation. And thank you for coming to Romania and being around us and teaching us about marketing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful country with a lot of great marketers. I can't wait to come back.
Mm-hmm. Mark, you just published recently your new book. I was referencing about it, but before we go into the topics of your book, I want to ask you a different question, and it is mainly about you, about the fact that you've been called the most trusted voice in marketing. I'm curious what experiences or turning points in your career shaped this very human-centric point of view, and you included almost in every work of you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure anyone has ever asked me that before. I've been on lots of interviews. I think it probably comes really from my upbringing in a way. I was raised in actually quite a poor family. We didn't have a lot of money, and I was taught the value of hard work, and I was taught the value of really being humble. And I don't know, I've always had this in my heart to be a nurturer, to help people. I was always a volunteer for different charities, even starting in high school and through college. So it's been really important for me to be a teacher and to put other people first, even from when I was a young person. And I suppose that has carried over to my work. I mean, the greatest joy for me is helping other people and watch them flourish. And especially now at this point in my life, if I can use my talent and my platforms to help other people, that's my greatest joy.
Thank you for doing this for us, Mark, and thank you for sharing your mind and your ideas. You've written many landmark books, and I counted 22, 23. Do I get it right?
Well, it depends on how you count them.
Okay. But
I usually say about, if you don't count like the second editions and the third edition and the workbooks, it's about 12. But it can be a lot more than that if you look at everything.
Okay. Congratulations for that. I've taken a look at your book, and I feel it's a little bit different one, and I feel it a little bit personal. Even I would hope I'm not wrong here, a little bit philosophical.
Yes, very much.
The questions what I have for you is, was it any moment in your life, prior writing the book, of course, when you realized that this is a big conversation and you want to be part of it? The topic, how AI changes our customers.
Well, I think the journey for me. And I think you're very correct when you talk about this as a very philosophical book, because I think we live in a time where we really need to examine what is humanity, what is the role of humanity in this world. And for me, the ideas really started in November of 2022 when ChatGPT came on the scene. I had just finished writing a book. And for me, writing a book is a great sacrifice, not just in terms of time, but in my mental health and my psychological health and even my physical health. When I'm finished writing a book, I've put everything into it and I'm totally exhausted. And about 2 weeks after I finished this book, ChatGPT came out. So of course, the very first thing I tried was write on a topic from this new book that I just finished and write this essay in the voice of Mark Schaefer. Well, in 3 seconds, it did a perfect job. And it made me think, oh my gosh, I just spent all this effort, all this sacrifice writing this book, and this thing can do a job like me. Where do I belong? What is my meaning? What is my purpose? Because for me, that struggle is part of the meaning. It's part of my journey that I know I'm sacrificing, but that people will benefit from the book. And so to me, that was really sort of a critical moment, kind of an existential moment. Now, since then, I've become much more comfortable with my place in this new world. But I think this existential question of where does humanity fit? Where do I fit in this AI dominant world? That was really the seed that became this book.
Or we are hearing at least that everybody's doing that, and maybe we are in a FOMO situation, maybe I'm missing out. How can brands, marketeers, companies stay in tapping into experience and learning from experience while not, atrophying your cognitive muscle?
I think this is probably the biggest personal learning I had from this book, writing this book, researching and studying to write this book. And it's that the most important soft skill, the most important personality skill going forward for a marketer and maybe even for our children is curiosity. And it gets to this point that you mentioned around phronesis. It's the internalizing information that becomes wisdom. And the difference is this: I'm a curious person. So I use AI all the time to learn, to get new wisdom. I'll see a new plant. I'll see a new animal. I'll see a new, I notice something, a star in the sky, and I want to learn more. And AI becomes like a little teacher for me, a little book I can read to add more wisdom. Now, that's why the curious person will thrive in this world. But a person that just wants the answer, I want to get the answer so I can pass this test and move on, they're not gaining any wisdom. And those are the people that are going to come out of our education systems and not know anything. And this is already happening. I am on the advisory board of a big business school, Rutgers University in America, in the New York City area. And my colleagues on this business board are saying that there's been a big difference in the last few years with the quality of the students coming out of the universities. They don't necessarily know what they used to know with the same degree. Furthermore, their human relation skills are deteriorating because they're counting on AI too much to take over in their lives. They said they can't think independently. They don't know how to be on a team. They don't know how to be in a meeting. And so they're suggesting we need to start implementing like basic human relation skills that we took for granted before in the business schools. So there's really deep implications for this.
You already slipped into my next question or topic of the discussion, the fact that you mentioned also in the book, how do we connect with customers when thinking becomes optional?
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice? And really, how can we still connect, or will be able to connect in the future in 3, 4, 5 years when potentially everyone could be living in an agentic world, when everybody has an own agent online?
Well, there's two themes that I've found in my research that seem to run through success in the AI world. And the first is to recognize that most people are lazy. Most people don't want to do the work. They want the answer. They don't want to go through the process. And so that's something to think about as we consider our marketing in this new reality. But there's a second thing that I kept coming across, and it's this idea of friction, of helping our customers feel useful when they may not feel that they have the agency that they had a few years ago because they're giving so much up to AI. And this was an interesting sort of fun example in the book that I think is very relevant in the age of AI, when AI can do everything for you. Many years ago, there was a famous baking brand in America that had a cake mix, and you could make a cake just by adding water to this mix. And it was a flop. It failed. So they hired a market researcher, and the market researcher found that the people that like to bake cakes didn't feel useful anymore. So they changed the formula so that you added water, but you also added an egg. And just by adding that friction of the egg, the cake mix became a success. So it's an interesting idea that somehow making our customers feel like they're part of the decision, making them feel useful, might really help them connect to our brand. And one of the things I'm seeing, which I think is fun, is we have these big stores in America where they sell things for home improvement, for do-it-yourself projects. And they've started this program on weekends where you bring your children and you learn how to make things together. So it's making the parent feel useful. It's teaching the child new skills. Even if the parent doesn't know anything about home improvement, they can learn along with the children. And I think that's an interesting idea of how do we make people feel more useful, how they feel like they have more agency. And I think adding that little bit of friction is a theme, I think, that will result in success in this world.
It's quite an interesting idea. I will try out definitely your suggestion. Talking about friction, there is a myth, which I believe it's a myth, but I'm curious about your perspective also about the end or the death of long form content. And I know that you touched down on this on your book about the fact that it might be the opposite, and you also uh, laid down a framework of designing content for exhausted brains. Can you talk about the long-form content future and what can we do if that's the case, if the attention span is shorting up or getting smaller and smaller, and what can we do on-site and off-site?
I think that's a great question because it really demonstrates both sides of this. And the first side is we have to acknowledge that most of our customers don't want to do the work and they're lazy. And so we've got to just feed them the answer. We've got to get them to the right ideas and get them to the right products because that's what they want. Now, on the other hand, there is this friction of something like long form content. And one of the myths, and I sense that you and I agree on this, that one of the myths that I really am disappointed with in the marketing world is that we have shorter attention spans. Well, if you have a teenager, you have probably seen them stay up all night playing video games or binging movies. Many of us will binge television shows. We'll watch hour after hour after hour. Why? Because it's interesting. It's relevant. It's entertaining. It resonates with us, maybe even in an emotional way, because we connect to the content in this special way that ignites our imagination. And so I dismiss this idea of shorter attention spans because we see that that's not true. And instead, I suggest that all this boring corporate content we're putting into the world, it has a short, interesting span. And so people aren't willing to put the mental energy into it because it's just not interesting. It's just not worthy of our attention. And here's another data point that I think is interesting. If you look at some of the relevant innovations in social media and content right now, it would be Substack, Medium, LinkedIn newsletters. This is old school. This is long form written content and it's thriving. So I think people learn in different ways. And I think, just as you suggested, for the people who are not curious, we need to serve them in one way. But the people who are curious, who want to know more, that's why Substack is thriving, because we want to connect with these smart thought leaders and subscribe to their content and feed our curiosity. And I think there's a lesson there for businesses and brands too.
Absolutely, I am a strong believer also myself in the power of content, but also in the efforts we have to make to earn the right for their attention, and that's a tricky part. And without doing the work, only just prompting in an LLM platform, it's not going to help you, give you too much of credit to be as a trusted source for information. Therefore, I read you on a periodically and till the end.
I think you're completely right. And as human beings and as individuals and professionals, we can see this. And my frustration is that so many companies, they haven't looked up to see how the world really works today. And they just keep doing the same boring things over and over and over again. And, they're trying to trick us into clicking a link. But and you can do that, but you can't trick people into loving you. You can't trick people into actually watching your video. You have to create something that's excellent today, something that's compelling today. And you need to really take a fresh look at how the world works and what really earns attention today. And look at what's taking over the world. I assume in Romania, it's similar to America where people love TikTok. And I mean, TikTok is profound in how it's affecting culture, how it's really a taste maker for our society today. And it operates in a totally different way that companies are traditionally used to. But we need to look up and see how people are connecting with culture today. And we need to adapt and we need to adopt and we need to put in the effort instead of just relying on Facebook ads for the rest of our careers.
Probably all these platforms do have also a very smart algorithm, and which is tapping into our emotions or feelings. And you also mentioned in your book that feelings are our last competitive advantage. I'm curious to learn from you, in this point of view, what emotions or brand behaviors will still move people in the present and, of course, in the future. And we should be focusing on it.
I think this is one of the most important questions, not just for business, but for humanity, because I think AI can give the illusion of compassion. It can give the illusion of caring. It can even give the illusion of human emotion that we love in art, and it can write books like famous authors. But I think the thing that will distinguish us, and this is sort of what I hold on to, is that I believe that no matter what happens with AI, art will persist. We will always love our favorite musician. We will always love our favorite artist. We will always love our favorite author. And when their new book comes out, we're going to be excited to read it. Why? Because art in that sense is an expression of humanity, not an illusion of humanity. When we go to ChatGPT and we say, I'm feeling down today, can you help cheer me up? Well, it's a mathematical algorithm that's going to statistically create this probability of saying something that might make you feel better. But when you are distraught and you feel like you can't go on, you need another person beside you that can, hold you and look in your eyes and say, I think I know how you feel. We don't need an algorithm. We don't need math. And so the idea here is that humanity will persist. Humanity does have a role to play, because and even our content in our companies, but we can't just be competent anymore. We can't, if you're just competent, you're vulnerable. AI is competent. Mm-hmm. If you're just competent, you're ignorable, because AI can be competent. You have to have the courage to create content and meaning for your company that approaches the level of art. And I know that's a weird way to think, because we don't think about art in our companies. But art is an expression that's true and it's real. And we have to have the courage to add our stories, because that's what's going to make us different. That's what's going to connect on an emotional level. What is brand marketing? It's creating meaning between, and it creates an emotional expectation. And so increasingly AI is going to be able to do some of that. But I think in the long term, the thing that will distinguish us is our humanity. I've started adding a badge on my blog post that say 100% human content. I want to assure people that this is me, that I am here for them. These are my true ideas. And in this world where we don't know what to believe, I think that's going to be important to show up as a real human, not to take a lazy route and have AI write my blog posts. The way I'm going to have meaning for my customers and my readers is to say, this is really me. I am really here. I am never going to go away. I am never going to let you down. And I think for small to medium-sized businesses, I think a lot of businesses are already doing that. The founder, the leader of the company, that's who is the brand. And it's going to be interesting to see how big companies and big brands adjust to this new world.
I hear you very loud and clear, but there are some would argue that there are a lot of temptations and they might fall into the trap of not augmenting our intelligence, but replacing, as you mentioned, we are a commodity. Intelligence it's getting more and more a commodity, and in that area, definitely our human touch will be the differentiator against the competition who is maybe leaning in heavily on AI. We are closing into our end of this episode. Mark, is there anything else you would like to discuss about your book? And I'm just reading out the main chapters: deep thinking, empathy, confidence and agency, purpose and meaning, connections and belonging, decision making, and quieter signals. I'm curious, tapping into the quiet and small elements of the signals. Why is that important, and what can we learn from it? Because some would say maybe we should just focus on the mass, whereas the most important majority of the people are talking. And why to mine for the small details which can hint maybe something big?
Well, in that part of the book, so I'll take a step back and mention how this book came to be, which hints at why the quieter signals might be important. So I was asked to participate in a research project, and they brought together 300 futurists from around the world in psychology and philosophy and tech and academia to answer this impossible question: how will AI change humanity by 2035? And the resulting report was so fascinating, and it made me think about, well, if AI is changing humanity, and there was some consensus, that means AI is changing our customers. And we need to understand that. So I took 6 of the big ideas from the book and explored this. Here's what these futurists think is going to happen, and here's what I think the implications for marketing could be. But there were other little ideas, some smaller signals. For example, there was consensus around AI potentially turning into a religion. So I chose not to make that a focus of the book, but I mentioned some of these smaller ideas because it might make people think, and for their specific business, that might be relevant. That might be important. So in that chapter, I just summarized some of these other ideas that I might be less important from a marketing perspective, but were thought-provoking nonetheless.
Oh, that's a lot of to digest and to take it apart and to put in practice and in our life wisdom. Thank you, Mark, for sharing all this information, and thank you for writing this book. I welcome everyone to get a copy of the book because it's one of the most important books I've read for quite some time, and it's quite interesting. Mark, we have a closing tradition in this show, which is the following: that every guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who is going to be. And the question left for you, it's from our previous guest, who happened to be also in the AI business, but in the ChatGPT machine learning. So his question is quite fitting our topic, but of course every question fits everywhere. What real-world problem you wish AI could solve for you, but it cannot for the moment.
Well, congratulations to that guest on that question. Well, at the moment, I mean, for me, what creates friction for me in my business when I have something I need to do that it needs to be me, but it's not something I should really be doing that takes my time. So an example would be I speak all over the world. I had the great honor to speak at GPEC in Romania 2 different times. And so the organizers of these events said, "Oh, Mark, will you create videos and promotional materials for us?" And of course, I want to do that. And I love to do that to help. But I wish I could have AI do that or have, more automation in terms of answering emails or something like that. 80% of the questions I get are kind of the same. So I could spend 20% of my time on where I really need to add value. So it's sort of that middle gray area. So the question I'll move forward would be...
it's a secret question, Mark. And you will
secret.
tell me, and we will have it on wheeled for the next guest in the next show. And I will send you the link so you can hear it, the answer for your question. Thank you, Mark. That was a pleasure to talk with you. And if I want to remain with something, with one single information or element from your our discussion, I would pick emotions and feelings, because at the end, probably that will be the biggest differentiator, and it's not an easy job to do, and you cannot fake it, because people will see it and will feel it when it's a fake emotion, a failed smile. Thank you for that, Mark, and thank you for being with us at Forum IT. Thank you for all of you who have listened or watched even this show, and I welcome you next week for our next episode. I'm Csaba Demeter. Thank you for watching us.